Yeah, no, this is something that you brought to me. I wasn't even aware of. I think everything besides the Will Smith slap has been something you brought to me. A gentleman by the name of Ralph Richard Banks, aka Carlton Banks, has decided to.
Hey man, Carlton got down with the sisters.
That's a fact too.
Carlton,
I should put
black
some respect
women.
on his name. Has decided to write an article for
New York Post.
Okay.
And has a book titled "Is Marriage for White People? How the African American Marriage Decline Affects Everyone" by Ralph Richard Banks.
That doesn't tell you what his article to the New York Post is about.
That one was pretty basic. It was should more black women consider dating outside of their race?
There you go.
Yeah, that was it. That was the premise. I it obviously was an eyebrow raiser. Even just the obviousness of the salaciousness of the title.
Mm-hmm.
But I read it. I read the article, and I have several problems. Several.
As you should.
Several problems. But I'm going to start at this one. And this is what really like kind of triggered me in this assertion. So there's an excerpt in the article where he says, "I explained in my book, the book we talked about, is Marriage for White People, why black women should not be pressured to sacrifice their chances for happiness out of some misplaced loyalty to black men." You know what? I actually agree with that. Being with the black man should not be more important than you being happy.
I would agree with that.
On its face, I do not disagree with that.
Is the loyalty misplaced?
Hold on. Let me get through it. Nor should black women feel bold. When he said nor, I thought he was going to say nor should black men do that. The same inverse for black women, but somehow that falls on him for some reason. Nor should black women feel beholden to black men under the guise of advancing the race. If the price for racial solidarity is a bad, intimate relationship, then the cost is too high. Black women should not be held hostage to the struggles of black men. I want to read a couple parts of that over again, just to make sure that I'm understanding it correctly. If the price for racial solidarity is a bad, intimate relationship, then the cost is too high. Black women should not be held hostage to the struggles of black men.
Question. Ralph Banks is a black man?
Black man, yeah.
So black man, black women dating black men are just automatically going to succumb to some sort of struggles in their relationship just because
you automatically
man is black?
You seen the parallel I seen that he's drawing here. So black women staying with black men for the idea of advancing the race is wrong. Well, first of all, if your goal is literally to perpetuate black people, you have to do that with other black people.
For sure.
I'm not saying that should be your goal. That's my goal. But that is for each individual to decide for themselves.
Absolutely.
Right? So if your literal goal is to advance or perpetuate your race, you can only do that with black people.
Mm-hmm.
You made a very empirical statement and tried to insert a little bit of emotion in there to make it wrong. And it's empirically, if you want to perpetuate your race, you have to do that with people who are in your race, if that is your goal. Secondly, if giving up intimacy is the cost of staying with a certain race of people, then the cost is too high. If giving up intimacy is the cost of dating within a certain race, then the cost is too high. Wouldn't that venture, to me, that sounds like if a black woman is dating a white man for no other reason than for his money, his success, or for her to be peripherally successful, is she not sacrificing her intimacy for that? So when when black women date white men for success, there's no potential for you in that for her to sacrifice her intimacy for that relationship. But when black women stay with black men for the purpose of perpetuating their race, which you literally have to be with black men to do, That's wrong. The cost is too high. Now, hearing this brother speak, you would have thought, man, he probably got him a white wife, and he feels differently about, black women or having black children or what have you. No, Mr. Banks is happily married to a black woman and has 3 black children.
You telling your children this sort of shit?
Did your wife have to sacrifice her intimacy to stay with you? I have no problem with him speaking from a place of holding intimacy higher in the qualifications for a mate with black women, because I do feel like that's a point of growth for both of us, looking for intimacy and looking for someone who supports you mentally and emotionally before you look into their wallet. That's something that we can all learn. But driving people away from their own race, from mating with their own race, as if you're driving them towards success, that's gross. Because it's not even, you're not even pushing interracial relationships, fam. You're not pushing that in this article. You pushing black women to go date white women or white men specifically. You didn't say nowhere in here go date Middle Eastern men. Go date Hispanic men. Asian men. You sent them directly towards white men. You used 2 examples in your article. Ketanji Brown, Kamala Harris. Gross. Both of them married to white men.
Yep.
Goes back to what we were talking about earlier. It's like we're changing the definition of interracial relationships to anything that involves a white person.
Yeah. Yep.
And now black people are doing it for them. You sit here with your black wife and your black children herding black women towards white men specifically under the guise of, you shouldn't have to be held responsible for the failures of black men. Black men are incarcerated at a higher rate than any other demographic in the country. Black men are killed at a higher rate than any other demographic. They have some of the lowest educational standards, some of the lowest educational admissions to post-secondary education. Not just post-secondary education. We talking trade programs, apprenticeships, all of that shit. Even the shit that you tell us to pull our bootstraps up and go do outside of college, we are still last in line for those as well. Mm-hmm. Trade programs, all of that shit. Last in line for loans, for grants, have been for centuries.
And can't build wealth because of it.
They have sought to systematically destroy our demographic as not to be able to perpetuate and grow in this country. It's well documented.
Mm-hmm. And despite that, not every black man succumbs to some of those things.
Hold on. We're not there yet. Okay. We're not there yet because that's an obvious thing, right? The fact that all people in a race are not a monolith and you cannot choose based on that is too obvious to start there. For a man to have a license to write on a national platform like the New York Post, you would think that is the lowest possible bar that you could possibly cross. But stop making exceptions for people that have bad intentions. Where I'm at with it is, who started all of that? What demographic do you blame for mass incarceration? Do you blame for redlining and Jim Crow laws? What demographic do you blame for all of that? I know who I do. Sounds like the group that you're trying to herd our women to. Hey, I got a good idea, black girls. You know the people who have perpetually destroyed your community, raped, pillaged, sent back to the Stone Ages when they felt it necessary. You know those people? That's who you should date. Give up on these niggas. They too far behind, and you shouldn't have to sit back here with them while they catching up. Give up on them. Go get a white man.
Me? Oh, I got my black wife.
Right. No. I got my black wife. I'm good. I done already perpetuated my race. I did my part. But you, you ain't got to do none of that. You ain't got to do that. Go ahead, girl. Get that vanilla chocolate swirl. You said earlier that that you thought that there were some women who might agree with this sentiment. And I told you, I know it is. because this reminds me of the black men have male privilege. Black men are privileged in America more so than that of the LGBTQ community. It also feels like the YouTube chick who was out here telling black women to abort black babies, to stop having black male babies.
That's fucking gross.
There's a trend going on here, y'all. There's a trend. Every time we look up on the TV now, there's a interracial relationship, meaning there's some sort of black or Hispanic or Asian person with a white person. And I just feel like it's interesting because we've always had the TV shows with the white couples, right? That's standard. That's Manila. That's what you're going to see as just your baseline. Yeah. Right? Sure. And then it's like we skipped completely over black couples and went to black and white couples. We realize that we have a problem with having black characters in relationships on TV. Instead of putting black people with other black people as to standardize it and then moving on to interracial, same thing that they did with Hispanics, same thing they did with Asian characters and things of that nature. It's not hard at all to put them with each other because by and large, when you look at the demographics, when you look at the numbers, that's how people date. That's how people date. Asian women are the outlier in all of that because they date outside of their race more than any other demographic. Black women are not even close to that. Black men are even further down the list than black women. Almost 80% of black men end up marrying or procreating with other black women. Now imagine that. Because the news and the media and everybody else and all these people that are telling y'all to abort black men would have you believing that we don't even want y'all. We don't want y'all. We ain't got nothing to do with y'all. Most of us go out here and get us a white girl or a Spanish girl or what have you. Meanwhile, we can't find a decent partner on that side. Well, at least for the most part. I won't say that because I know friends who have dated outside their race and found love and had beautiful partners. Absolutely. But for the most part, my experience has been being fetishized. People want you for what they think black is. Yeah. Come on over here, man, Dinko. Oh, only one round? That's all you got for me? Going to sleep? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's reality, there's perception, there's your feelings, there's numbers. It's easy to decipher all of that if you care enough to do it.
You know, it's interesting that you mentioned the fact that we basically went from all white couples to the mix. Because if I remember correctly, for like the first time I started seeing some of these black people on some of these like mainstream shows is because a black woman was put into those shows to be the love interest of a white character. Thank you. So like I'm seeing, I believe it was Aisha Tyler on Friends, and that was the biggest fucking thing because oh my God, there's a black person on Friends.
Fam, they used to
Boy Meets World.
Not Corey. Corey's friend Sean and
I can't remember her name.
And I used to love that fucking show. I used to love that show.
But and funny enough, she had a whole bunch of fucking terrible stories about how she experienced racism on the set.
I believe it. I mean, she was literally the only black person on the show. I 1000% believe it. And you know, it's funny because they never used to show black men really in relationships unless they were the player or the bad guy or the abuser. And or now
the main character.
Now they've gotten so deep into what it really is, and we'll talk about that in a second. They've gotten so deep into what it really is. Now they've completely given up on the black man molester trope. And now they just start putting all the black guys with white women in TV shows. As to further drive home this narrative that, hey, you don't need them. They don't want you anyways. It's a narrative, y'all. It's a narrative. Black people stay together more than anybody else. Wake up. Wake up. Ask yourself. I've done this to a few of my family members over the last, I'd say 6 months to a year. Run down through your uncles, brothers, fathers, grandpas, cousins, friends, best friends, exes, whatever. Just run down the list, man. Literally, do it. Do it with yourself. Run down the list. Pick out everybody who's dating outside of their race currently, has children outside of their race. Everybody that's currently dating within their race and has children with other black people.
Yeah, no, it's overwhelmingly black couples.
I'd say it's probably going to be about 4 or 5 to 1.
In my case, I think it's even more than that, but you know.
You know what I'm saying? Like 4 to 5 to 1.
I'm thinking friends.
You date
everything.
Where you live. Where you live determines where you're going to procreate most of the time. Who you're going to procreate with. If most white people live next to white people. If most Asian people live next to Asian people. If most black people live next to other black people. It ventures to guess that, hey, more than likely, regardless of what I'm feeling right now, regardless of what my personal experience is, regardless of what people are trying to tell me, the chances of somebody within that demographic tipping the scale so far the other way to where now there's a surplus of black women not being able to be with black men, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. What they're attempting to do is convince you that the socioeconomic plight of the black man is too heavy for you to bear. And that you shouldn't have to. It's interesting.
Very
because
interesting coming from a fucking black man.
Well, no, also, yeah. But also because 40, 50 years ago, the only one who could carry the socioeconomic weight of the household was the black man. He did so through war. He did so through mass incarceration. He did so through a crack epidemic. It wasn't until late 90s, early 2000s when the educational swing started to take place, more black women getting into higher education, getting more scholarships, getting more grants, that shit started to shift. Now you earn more.
Mm-hmm.
We still on the same fucked up lines as long as health and social conditions, but you earn more. You get into college more. You have the leadership positions in these jobs that we both work in, even though you're getting cents on the dollar to your white counterparts. But you're cents on the dollar in a leadership position. I'm cents on the dollar entry level. Don't let nobody convince you that our plights are not intertwined. We just take turns getting oppressed. That's it. What's really driving this is that realization that whiteness is dying in America. Whiteness is really dying in the Western Hemisphere.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
And so all of this messaging, all of these articles that you're starting to see pop up, all these agents of chaos, there's a thing to it. Call it conspiratorial if you want to. But I see a running theme coming from multiple people, multiple platforms, and they're all given the same general idea that black men are lesser and should be done away with. That is the energy I'm getting. That's the messaging I'm getting. Mm-hmm. They're not necessary. We can protect you. We will be with you. We'll marry you. We'll make you successful. Meanwhile, we're still trying to get black men out of jail for having bags of weed. We still trying to get men out of jail, or excuse me, get men out of prison for having weed. We trying to get men out of jail because they don't have enough money to pay bail for traffic violations or unpaid parking tickets because of a cash bail system. That's racist and rigged. Those are not things that adversely affect black women. That's black men. And that's not shit that we do to ourselves either. Don't let nobody convince you of this horse shit.